After a day of deadly warfare, the fragile U.S.-brokered ceasefire is now back on. The IDF announcement came after a directive from the political echelon. The ceasefire returns a day after an IDF soldier was killed in a terror attack in Rafah, and Israel retaliated with massive airstrikes with heavy losses. The Israeli retaliation for the Hamas ceasefire infraction have stopped for now, and the fragile U.S.-brokered ceasefire is back in place. More on this from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
Gaza's Hamas-run civil defense agency says at least 50 people were killed and 200 wounded in Israeli airstrikes. The numbers could not be independently confirmed. The order to strike came from Prime Minister Netanyahu directly, who ordered the army to carry out powerful attacks due to a string of ceasefire violations by Hamas. According to the army, the IDF is returning fire in order to stop Hamas from further endangering soldiers on the Israeli side of the Yellow Line in Gaza. Defense Minister Katz said that Hamas terrorists will pay a heavy price for attacking IDF soldiers and violating the agreement to return hostage remains. Israeli security officials said the government is considering options in case Hamas fails to deliver on returning the hostage remains, including extending operational control. The army announced that an IDF reservist was killed in yesterday's attack carried out by Palestinian terror operatives against troops stationed in the Rafah area of the southern Gaza Strip. The slain soldier was named as Master Sergeant Reserve Yonah Effie Feldbaum, 37, from the community of Neria in the Binyamin Regional Council. He leaves a wife and 5 children. According to an initial IDF probe, the terror operatives launched RPGs and carried out sniper fire against the forces who were operating in Rafah's Janina neighborhood. The area is located on the eastern side of the Yellow Line, an area under Israeli control as part of the ceasefire. The IDF has assessed that there are terror operatives holed up in a pocket in the area. As troops work to clear the neighborhood of Hamas infrastructure, operatives emerged from a tunnel and carried out the attack. Last week, 2 soldiers were killed in a similar attack in the same neighborhood. Israel has blamed Hamas for both attacks. Hamas denies a connection to either one. It's day 754 of the war in Gaza. Israeli retaliation for the Hamas ceasefire infractions has stopped for now, and the fragile U.S.-brokered ceasefire is back in place. The IDF announced that the ceasefire in the Gaza Strip is now once again in effect, following a series of significant strikes targeting Hamas targets and operatives. The announcement went on in accordance with the directive of the political echelon and following a series of strikes in which dozens of terror targets and terrorists were struck. The IDF has begun the renewed enforcement of the ceasefire after Hamas violated it.
U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance told reporters that the Gaza ceasefire will hold despite the exchange of fire between Israel and Hamas. Speaking after the deadly RPG attack that killed an Israeli soldier, but before the Israeli airstrikes that followed, Vance said, "There are going to be little skirmishes here and there. We know Hamas attacked an IDF soldier. We expect the Israelis are going to respond." According to the Prime Minister's office in Israel, Jerusalem notified U.S. President Donald Trump's administration of its decision to carry out strikes in Gaza City in response to Hamas violations of the ceasefire after Prime Minister Netanyahu had already ordered the move. A U.S. official and an Israeli official told the Times of Israel that Jerusalem updated Washington after the decision was made, but before the strikes took place. An official from the U.S.-led Civil Military Coordination Center in Kiryat Gat, which oversees the ceasefire and monitors progress on Washington's Gaza peace plan, confirmed that it was informed by Israel, and an Israeli official confirmed that the U.S. was notified about Israel's planned response before the strikes were carried out. According to both officials, discussions took place on political and military levels. New developments tonight in the hostage return efforts. Hamas claims to have found the body of an Israeli hostage still in Gaza, but is now refusing to hand it over. The group says it is halting all transfers following what it calls Israeli violations of the ceasefire. Let's now go to ILTV correspondent India Naftali for more. India?
Hi, Sivan. What was supposed to be another step towards closure has turned into fresh uncertainty. Hamas says it located a body belonging to one of the 13 Israeli hostages still in Gaza and had planned to deliver it to the Red Cross last night. But after Israeli airstrikes in Rafah, The terror group says it will not hand over the body, claiming Israel breached the ceasefire.
The Saudi Al-Hadath network reported that Hamas recovered what claimed were 2 hostage bodies from tunnels in Khan Yunis, including one that was to be returned the same night it was discovered. Hamas then canceled the transfer, saying it was responding to a series of Israeli violations. Earlier on Tuesday, Hamas terrorists had opened fire on Israeli troops near Rafah, killing one IDF reservist. After security consultations, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered powerful strikes in response, calling Hamas's attack a blatant ceasefire breach. The escalation comes just hours after the IDF released drone footage exposing what it's called a staged body discovery. The video showed Hamas operatives burying remains belonging to Ofir Tsarfati, an Israeli hostage whose body had already been discovered 2 years ago, and then pretending to unearth his remains before handing them to the Red Cross.
I can confirm to you today that Hamas dug a hole in the ground yesterday, placed the partial remains of Ofir inside of it, covered it back up with dirt, and handed it over to the Red Cross. The IDF caught the entire sequence of events on a military drone.
Ofir's family says the incident was a cruel manipulation, forcing them to reopen his grave for the 3rd time. His mother, Rachel Tsarfati, called it continuous emotional abuse and a wound that keeps reopening. Under the terms of the ceasefire agreement, Hamas was required to return all hostages, living and dead, within 72 hours. The group released all 20 living hostages, but has failed to return all the deceased. So far, Hamas has returned 15 of the 28 fallen hostages, leaving 13 bodies in Gaza. Israeli officials say Hamas knows where most of them are, but is deliberately delaying.
Hamas is warning that any new airstrikes in Gaza will hinder future handovers, while Israel says the group is using the dead as a bargaining chip. And as both sides trade accusations, families of the fallen remain in distress. It's become very apparent that without the return of every hostage, dead or alive, the peace plan cannot move forward. Sivan, back to you.
Thank you very much, India. Israelis gathered in Tel Aviv's hostage square last night to pray and sing for the release of the remaining 13 deceased hostages still held in Gaza. Bar Cooperstein, an Israeli hostage who was recently released, thanked the crowd for their support and invited them to join him in a mass prayer on Friday. Orna Nutra, mother of Israeli hostage Omer Nutra, whose body remains in Gaza, talked about the struggle of not having closure until she buries her son.
באמת, אין לי מילים לתאר את כל האהבה ואת כל מה שאתם עושים בשבילי ובשביל כל שאר החטופים. זה פשוט מטורף. עם כל העניין של השיקום וזה, אמרתי, אני חייב להגיע לפה ולהגיד תודה ובאמת להעריך את כל מה שעשיתם בשבילי. אני באמת... אין מילים שיוצאות לי מהפה. גם כל מי שבא אליי ופוגש אותי אומר לי, גם לי אין מילים להגיד. אין, זה פשוט לא יוצא, זה פשוט טירוף. אז חשוב לי להגיד שיש לנו עוד אחים שלנו שנמצאים שם בשבי והם חייבים לצאת, ואני רוצה להזמין את כולם ביום שישי בשעה 10. אני רוצה לארגן הנחת תפילין המונית שכולכם תניחו ביחד איתי, תגשימו את החלום שלי. החלום שלי היה זה להניח תפילין בשבי, ואנחנו נעשה את זה בשביל שחרור כל אחינו שנמצאים עדיין בשבי. תודה רבה לכולם.
זכינו לראות ולחבק חלק מהשבים מהמנהרות, וזו תחושת נס אמיתית. אבל במקביל נותרנו אנחנו בתוך חלום בלהות שנמשך כבר 753 ימים בלי נקודת סיום ברורה לעין. אנחנו נלחמים בכל מאודנו למען דבר שאף הורה לא אמור להיאבק עליו. ודאות המוות של בנינו עומר. זהו מאבק בלתי אפשרי.
And joining us now to discuss all of these latest events is former British Army Commander Richard Kemp. Thank you, Richard, for joining.
My pleasure to be with you.
Richard, the fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is back on right now after Israel retaliated against Hamas targets following their attack on Israeli soldiers. You have extensive military experience. Where do you think things stand here militarily speaking? Will this ceasefire hold, in your opinion?
Well, I think Israel is certainly very keen that the ceasefire does hold, and I think will do whatever it needs to do to make sure that happens. Of course, it's a different story with Hamas. Hamas, right from the beginning, have been stalling and trying to delay and trying to obfuscate and pull the wool over the eyes. But of course, at the same time, they're under a degree of pressure themselves, but particularly, I think, from Qatar and Turkey, who are obviously signatories to this peace agreement, and I think themselves probably want it to hold. So it may be that this will continue. I wouldn't be at all surprised if we don't see along the road, we don't see further Hamas breaches of the ceasefire agreement, both in terms of attacking Israeli soldiers and also dragging their heels on the release of some of the remaining hostages.
So it seems that the U.S. understands Israel's stance, with American leaders confirming that Israel does have the right to defend itself. At the same time, we also know that they're very driven and focused on their long-term goals with this peace process. What are your thoughts on this kind of American pressure on Israel and the way that Israel might be facing all of this kind of pressure? How should Israel deal with that?
Well, I don't actually believe that Israel is under huge pressure from America. I think this agreement and the Trump 20-point plan was drawn up well in advance between both the Israeli government and the American administration, the Trump administration. I think it was agreed, both sides agreed to it, or both countries agreed to it. Both want it to work, and I know there's a lot of media hype about America pressurizing Israel and Israel becoming a vassal state of America and things like that. I don't think that's the reality at all. I think the relationship is far closer than that. Now, that doesn't mean to say there won't be tension between the two, because while I mentioned earlier that Israel is enthusiastic about this deal working out, I think probably America and the Trump administration is even more enthusiastic, and they might maybe they will have less understanding about when things begin to go wrong, which they inevitably will. But I think the two sides are so close that they will figure it out between them.
Now, Netanyahu is also facing growing pressure from within to hit back hard when Hamas attacks or breaks the ceasefire terms or plays games in regards to the returning of the Israeli deceased hostage bodies. How long do you think Netanyahu will be able to show restraint if these things keep happening? Would the Americans or the Brits show restraint if their troops were under attack?
Well, I don't think, it depends what you call restraint, of course, because I don't think Netanyahu is inclined to be restrained in as far as the requirement to either prevent attack or hit back when an attack takes place. And we've seen that just in the last 24-hour period. We've seen that he's willing to order the IDF to take significant, strong action against breaches of the ceasefire. So I think that will be the way we'll see it going. And of course, there'll be different people inside Israel, different people in the US, other countries as well, who have their own opinions on how strongly Israel should and shouldn't respond. But I think we could be quite confident that Prime Minister Netanyahu will respond with the appropriate degree of force, whatever he judges and his advisors around him judge to be the most effective way of dealing with it. And that, of course, does include both retaliation when the ceasefire is breached, but also it includes taking action in order to save the lives of Israeli soldiers if let's say, intelligence identifies as a threat to them. So like any situation, like any war situation, I think this, a very complex one. And there are so many different dynamics and moving parts. And in direct answer to your question about whether Britain or America would show restraint, I think probably they would act in a not totally dissimilar way. In other words, restraining themselves as much as they could in order to maintain the agreement, but not being pushed around by Hamas.
Richard Kemp, thank you very much for this input.
Thank you.
On October 7, I was here at the Nova Music Festival. I ran for my life, hid for 7 hours. Terrorists shot me twice. Thankfully, I survived. I'm still dealing with trauma, and I'm not alone. 3 million Israelis are in trauma. They need mental health care or physical rehabilitation. Wounded soldiers, families, and scared children.
Since 1912, Hadassah has been a life-changing force in Israel. Today, Hadassah has 2 world-renowned hospitals, pioneers breakthrough medical research, cares for youth, and has built the much-needed and largest rehabilitation facility in Jerusalem.
Thank you to everyone at Hadassah Hospitals. You've been helping me and so many others. And a special thanks to one nurse, my mom. I love you.
In Tel Aviv, an unexpected regional conference brought together representatives of persecuted minorities from across the Middle East, a rare show of solidarity and shared vision from the region's future. More on this from ILTV's Mayan Hoffman.
For decades, Israel has watched its neighbors' minority communities, Druze, Kurds, Alawites, Assyrians, and Yazidis, face persecution and displacement. Now, for the first time, the representatives gathered in Tel Aviv to discuss a shared future, one that some say could reshape the region. Organized by Middle East expert Dr. Eddie Cohn, a Lebanese-born Israeli Jew, the conference titled The Future of Minorities in the Middle East aimed to give a voice to communities long silenced under authoritarian regimes and Islamist rule. Cohn told Israel Hayom that the gathering was meant to raise the issue of minorities and their deep connection to Israel. Many participants came from exile, such as Kurds from Germany and Poland, Alawites and Assyrians from Europe, but not all made it in. Channel 12 reported that several activists were denied entry into Israel, including a Druze delegation from France. Still, their messages of partnership were clear, including a powerful address from Sheikh Marwan Kiwan, a Druze leader from Sweda, Syria, who spoke remotely after deadly clashes in his city earlier this year. Channel 12 quoted Kiwan thanking Israel for aiding the Druze community during those attacks. He said that we and the Jews, all the peoples of the region, are on the same front. The conference concluded with a call to establish a new regional liaison office to coordinate activism, monitor human rights, and strengthen ties with Israel. In Cohn's words, this was not just a meeting, but the start of a new alliance for minorities seeking freedom and partnership with the Jewish state.
As required by the ceasefire agreement with Israel, the Lebanese army is reportedly expected to finish its sweep of Hezbollah targets in the south by the end of this year, a considerable accomplishment in a country in which Hezbollah was once the dominant political and military force. But Hezbollah has yet to be disarmed in its other Lebanese strongholds, and the Lebanese army awaiting orders from the political echelon. More from ILTV's Devo Klein.
No images have been published of its operations or of the weapons taken and destroyed. But according to reliable reports, the Lebanese army, now expected to finish its sweep of Hezbollah targets in the south by the end of the year, in a major accomplishment in removing the threat from along the Israeli border. The Lebanese army now says that it has blown up so many Hezbollah arms caches that it has run out of explosives as it races to meet a year-end deadline required by the U.S.-brokered ceasefire deal with Israel. The shortage of explosives has not stopped the army from quickening the pace of inspection missions to search for hidden weapons in the south along the Israeli border. This according to a security source. It would have been unimaginable for Lebanon's military to undertake such a task at the height of Iran-backed Hezbollah's power just a few years ago, and many observers were skeptical even after the U.S.-brokered ceasefire deal was signed last November. Hezbollah was hit hard by Israel's war last year, which killed thousands of fighters and the group's senior leadership, including Hassan Nasrallah. All the while, the United States is maintaining pressure on Lebanon to complete Hezbollah's disarmament. As they await new deliveries of explosives and equipment from the United States, Lebanese troops have been sealing off arms sites instead of destroying them. Recent searches uncovered 9 new arms caches and dozens of Hezbollah tunnels, according to officials. The Lebanese army is trying to avoid escalating tensions as Lebanese political leaders debate the group's weapons in other regions. Under the November 2024 ceasefire that ended over a year of hostilities, Lebanon agreed that only state security forces may bear arms, effectively requiring Hezbollah's full disarmament. Hezbollah, however, argues that disarmament applies only to the south and insists that any further action requires political consensus.
That doesn't suit you.
I'm telling you what's right for you.
Listen to me, I know what I'm talking about.
Feels uncomfortable? That's just about clothing, something you can change tomorrow. But what about choices that last a lifetime? In Israel, over 30,000 women every year feel that their most fundamental right is taken away. The ability to choose. Financial pressure, pressure from a partner, pressure from family, or even that quiet voice whispering, "You can't do this." That's why FRAD exists. Not to tell her what to do, not to choose for her, but to isolate the pressure to enable a true free choice, whether it's emotional support, medical guidance, personal mentoring, career counseling, parenting education, or the most practical essentials. A crib, a stroller, clothes, diapers, baby supplies, food packages, everything she needs to make the choice she wants instead of the choice she feels forced to make. More than 89,000 women have already found the strength to choose and give birth. But it's not enough. We must give every woman the ability to choose. It is our moral and ethical duty. Every donation gives another woman the ability to choose. Every act of support means life for someone else. FRAT, giving hope to birth.
This week marks the opening of the 39th World Zionist Congress at Jerusalem's National Convention Center, as around 2,500 delegates from 42 countries, including Israel, the U.S., Canada, the UK, and dozens of others, arrived to the Holy City. This year's gathering is being billed as the largest ever parliament of the Jewish people, and it comes at a deeply consequential moment.
Delegates of the historic gathering in Jerusalem will discuss hot-button issues, including army conscription, West Bank sovereignty, Jewish identity in a post-war Israel, and the distribution of more than $1 billion annually through major institutions. For many, this Congress is more than symbolic. It will determine leadership of influential bodies like the Jewish Agency for Israel and the Jewish National Fund, Kakal, which shape policy and funding for Jewish communities worldwide, and now for an Israel emerging from its longest war ever. Inside the plenary halls, committees will debate dozens of proposed resolutions and constitutional amendments. Some are steeped in controversy. Should Israel extend sovereignty over the Temple Mount? Should all Israeli citizens be conscripted? And perhaps most sensitive, the push for a state commission to probe the events of October 7th, 2023. Organizers describe the Congress as a demonstration of Jewish democracy, a moment when unity does not mean uniformity, bringing together Orthodox, Reform, secular, left-wing, and right-wing voices all under one roof. As delegates vote this week, the Jewish world will deliberate how to position itself amidst a changing Israel and post-war Middle East.
Now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Clear skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of 19 degrees Celsius or 66 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see clear skies alongside steady temperatures, seeing highs of 29 degrees Celsius or 85 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels and our new live channel, and you can also catch us on Screen IL with 24/7 live coverage. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Sivan Raviv. Be well, be safe, and thank you so much for watching.